The air in Sunview Manor smelled of lemon polish and something older, something sweet and faintly medicinal that clung to the curtains. Leo, 34, with the tired eyes of someone who's been a caretaker longer than a friend, walked down the corridor. His sneakers squeaked on the linoleum. Room 307, his sister, Maya's room. Maya wasn't old. At 32, she was the youngest resident by decades. A car accident 5 years ago had stolen more than her mobility. It had built a wall of silence around her. She hadn't spoken a word since. The doctors called it psychogenic mutism, a brain that chose silence as its only defense. Leo paused at the door, taking a breath. He was all Maya had. Their parents were gone, and the few friends they'd had drifted away, uncomfortable with the silence. He worked double shifts as a graphic designer just to afford this place. Every Saturday, without fail, he visited. He pushed the door open, a practiced smile on his face. "Hey, May, it's your favorite brother, here to rescue you from the thrill of bingo and mediocre pudding." Maya sat in her wheelchair by the window, overlooking the manicured garden. She turned her head slowly, her dark eyes, so like his own, meeting his. There was no smile, but a softness entered her gaze. That was enough for Leo. It had to be. He placed a small pot of purple violets on her windowsill next to a photo of them as kids, covered in mud after a rainstorm, laughing. "The garden outside is beautiful," he said, filling the silence. "Mrs. Henderson was showing me her roses, says they're exhibition quality. I wouldn't know exhibition quality from a dandelion, but they looked pretty good." He chatted about his week, a difficult client, a funny meme he'd seen. He told her about the stray cat he'd started feeding, a scruffy orange thing he'd named Marmalade. Maya listened, her gaze steady. Sometimes her right hand, the one with limited movement, would tap a slow rhythm on the armrest of her chair. Once, Leo could swear it was in time with the cadence of his speech. Today, a new element was present. Sitting primly on the small visitor's chair was Leo's niece, Elara, Maya's daughter. She was 7, with her mother's dark hair and serious eyes. She was clutching a worn, floppy-eared rabbit, its fur almost gone in patches. "Hey, Elara," Leo said, softly, pulling up a chair next to her. "How's school?" Elara just looked at him, then back at her mother. She never spoke, not a word. The doctors had a different label for her, selective mutism. She could speak, physically, but severe anxiety prevented her from doing so in most social situations. At home, with her father, Drew, she was reportedly a different child. But here, in this sterile room, she was as silent as Maya. Leo's heart ached for them both, 2 islands of silence in a noisy world. Drew, Maya's husband, stood by the door, scrolling through his phone. He was a practical man, an accountant, and he dealt with the situation with a kind of brisk efficiency that Leo found both admirable and slightly grating. "Thanks for meeting us, Leo," Drew said, not looking up. "I have a client call in an hour, so we can only stay for a bit. Elara wanted to see her mom." "Of course, always good to see her." Drew finally pocketed his phone. The specialist in the city, the one for Elara, he thinks a change of environment might help. He's suggested we try a few sessions at his clinic. It's expensive, but we have to try everything, right? Leo nodded. The financial strain on Drew was immense. He was a single parent, holding down a job, managing Elara's therapy, and visiting Maya when he could. Leo felt a pang of guilt. He did what he could, but Drew was on the front lines. "I'll stay with Maya while you're gone," Leo offered. "Take your time. Don't rush back for her sake. She knows you're here." Drew gave a tight smile. "Thanks. Elara, say goodbye to your mom for now." He walked over and gently kissed Maya's forehead. She didn't react. Elara slid off her chair, went to her mother, and pressed her cheek against her limp hand for a long moment. Then, without a backward glance, she followed her father out. The door clicked shut, leaving a profound silence in its wake. Leo sighed and sat on the edge of Maya's bed. "They're trying so hard, May. We're all trying." He looked at her. "Are you trying in there?" He tapped his temple. "Are you fighting to get back to us?" Maya's eyes just stared out the window at a bird on the lawn. Leo leaned his head back, exhaustion washing over him. The quiet of the room was heavy, but familiar. He let his eyes close, just for a moment. He wasn't sure how long he'd been dozing when a small, clear voice cut through the silence. "She's not supposed to take the pink ones." Leo's eyes snapped open, his heart hammered against his ribs. The room was empty, just him and Maya. He looked at his sister. She was still staring out the window, utterly still. Had he dreamed it? He must have. The stress, the worry. Then, a tiny movement. Elara, she was standing by the door. She must have come back in. Maybe she forgot her rabbit. But no, the rabbit was clutched tightly in her hand. Leo sat up, his mouth dry. "Elara? Did you say something?" Elara looked at him, her dark eyes holding an ancient wisdom that made Leo's skin prickle. She didn't look scared. She looked purposeful. "My mom told me," she whispered, her voice so small, so fragile, yet perfectly clear. It was the first time Leo had ever heard her speak. It was like hearing a statue sing. "She talks to me, in my head, like you talk to Marmalade, but he can't talk back. She can. She tells me stories at night. She told me about the pills." Leo's mind reeled. "Your mom? Elara, your mom. She can't—" Elara walked closer to the bed, her eyes flicking from Leo to Maya and back. "She talks to me, in my head." Leo was on his feet now, his pulse a drumbeat in his ears. He went to Maya, kneeling in front of her wheelchair, gripping her good hand. "Maya, what is she talking about? Who are the bad people?" Maya's face was a mask, but then, so faintly he almost missed it, her right hand moved. It wasn't a random tap. Her index finger slowly, deliberately traced a letter on the armrest of her chair. N, then another, U, R, S, E. Nurse. Leo stared. "A nurse?" he breathed. He looked at Elara. "What about the pink ones, sweetheart? What pink ones?" Elara clutched her rabbit tighter. "The pills in the morning. She's not supposed to take the pink ones. The pink ones make her sleepy. So sleepy she can't talk to me. The bad nurse gives them to her, the one who smells like peppermint." A cold dread, colder than anything he'd ever felt, slithered down Leo's spine. A nurse who smelled like peppermint? That was Greta, the night shift supervisor. She was always brisk, efficient, but never unkind. Was she? "What happens after she takes the pink ones, Elara?" Leo asked, his voice a hoarse whisper. Elara looked at her mother, then back at Leo. "She goes away, far, far away, and she can't find her way back until they wear off. She said to tell you because you're the only one who listens, the only one who really sees her." Leo looked at Maya. A single tear had escaped from the corner of her eye and was tracing a slow path down her cheek. It was the most profound communication he'd ever received. It was a confirmation, a plea. The pieces started crashing together in Leo's mind with terrifying speed. Maya's complete silence, deeper than just trauma, her lack of progress. The fact that she was always so lethargic when he visited in the mornings after the night shift, he'd assumed it was just her condition. But what if— He thought of Drew's financial strain, the expensive specialist for Elara, the mounting medical bills, and Sunview Manor wasn't cheap. What if Maya had something someone wanted? Their parents had left a small inheritance, a life insurance policy that paid out to Maya. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough. Enough for what? To keep her quiet? To speed things along? "Elara," Leo said, kneeling down to her level, his heart breaking for the burden this little girl carried. "You are so, so brave. You and your mom just saved my life. Maybe all our lives. I need you to be brave for a little while longer, okay? Can you do that?" Elara nodded, her small face solemn. Leo pulled out his phone. He didn't call 911, not yet. He needed proof. He called his friend, Jenna, a former journalist who now did freelance investigations. He explained in a low, urgent voice. Jenna listened without interrupting, then told him to document everything, to not touch anything, and that she'd be there in an hour with a contact, a private investigator who specialized in elder and disability fraud. The next hour was the longest of Leo's life. He stayed in the room with Maya and Elara. He took photos of Maya's medication chart on the wall. He gently opened the small lockbox where her daily meds were kept, using the combination Maya's doctors had given him years ago. He photographed the blister packs, the morning dose, one pink pill. He didn't touch it. Elara sat on the bed, holding her mother's hand, humming a soft, tuneless little song. Maya's eyes were on her daughter, and for the first time, Leo saw something other than vacant stillness in them. He saw fierce, silent love. Jenna arrived with a man named Frank, a solid, unassuming guy in his 50s who looked like he could be a retired mailman. He was anything but. He listened to Leo's story, to Elara's quiet, repeated confirmation. He looked at the photos. "Leave this to me," Frank said. "Don't confront anyone. I'll start making some quiet inquiries, check staff records, cross-reference medication logs. The fact that the kid mentioned a specific nurse and a specific pill color is huge. It's not evidence, but it's a hell of a direction." Over the next week, Leo played a part he never knew he could. He acted normal, he visited at his usual times, he even smiled at Greta, the peppermint-scented nurse, when he saw her in the hall. The effort made him feel sick. Frank worked fast. He discovered that Greta had been hired only 6 months after Maya was admitted, with credentials from a state that were later found to be slightly off. He discovered, through a source at a pharmaceutical company, that the pink ones were a high-dose sedative, not part of Maya's prescribed treatment plan. He found a pattern of medication discrepancies on the night shift that always seemed to balance out by morning. The breaking point came on Thursday night. Frank called Leo. "We've got her," he said. "I had a PI I know pose as a new orderly. We placed a small, legal audio recorder in the nurse's station on the night shift, got Greta on tape talking to another aide. She was complaining about the vegetable in 307 and how she hoped the payout was worth all this waiting. The aide asks her what she was talking about, and Greta shut up. But we have enough, and the police have a warrant." Leo drove to Sunview Manor not as a visitor, but to meet the police. He watched from the parking lot as 2 squad cars pulled up silently. He saw them go in. 20 minutes later, they came out with Greta, her face pale and shocked, her peppermint scent probably the only familiar thing about her as she was put in the back of a police car. The next day, the full story began to emerge. The police investigation, aided by Frank's evidence, uncovered a scheme. Greta had been paid by a distant cousin of Drew's, a man named Carter, who stood to inherit a portion of Maya's estate if something were to happen to her, and if Drew, as her grieving husband, might be more open to business opportunities. Carter had convinced Greta that Maya was essentially brain dead, that they'd be doing everyone a favor. Greta's job was to keep Maya sedative and unresponsive, to prevent any chance of recovery, and to slowly, through neglect and complications, hasten her end. The pink pills were the key. Drew was devastated. He had known nothing. His cousin, the one who'd been so supportive after the accident, the one who'd helped him with some investments, was a monster. He was arrested the same night. In the weeks that followed, a remarkable thing happened. With Greta gone and the sedatives out of her system, Maya began to emerge from her fog. It was slow, a blink of recognition, a small squeeze of Leo's hand. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, as Leo was reading to her from an old book of poetry they'd loved as kids, her lips moved. "The woods are lovely, dark and deep," Leo read, "but I have promises to keep." A dry, cracked voice whispered from the bed. Leo dropped the book. He looked at Maya. Her eyes were clear, focused on him, and wet with tears.
"Maya?" he choked out. "And miles to go before I sleep," she finished, her voice stronger. "Hi, Leo." He was at her side in an instant, holding her, both of them sobbing. It was the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard, his sister's voice. The road to recovery was long. Maya had to learn to walk again, to speak fluently, to piece together the 5 lost years. But she had a fire inside her now, a reason. And then there was Elara. One evening, about a month after Maya had spoken her first words, Leo was at their new apartment, a small, bright place they'd rented together. Maya was on the couch, and Elara was building an elaborate castle out of blocks on the floor. "Elara," Maya said softly, "come here, my love." Elara looked up, then toddled over, climbing onto the couch next to her mother. Maya wrapped an arm around her. "You know," Maya said, looking at Leo, a mischievous glint in her eye, "there's something you should know about my silence, Leo, and Elara's." Leo raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" Maya looked down at her daughter. "When I was in that room, trapped in my own head, the only thing that kept me sane was Elara. I could hear her, not just in my head, like she said. I could actually hear her, whispering to me when no one was around. She was my only link to the world." Elara snuggled closer. "And," Maya continued, a slow smile spreading across her face, "she wasn't the only one who could hear. I could talk back, not out loud, but I figured out a way. I taught her. We developed our own language, a secret one." Leo leaned forward, fascinated. "A secret language? Like tapping?" Maya shook her head. "Too risky, too easy to see. No, ours was different. It was in the silences, the pauses between my silence and her words. I would think a word, a color, a feeling, as hard as I could, focusing all my energy on her, and she learned to feel it. She told me things in the same way. It was how she knew about the pink pills. It was how I told her who to tell. It was how we survived." Leo was speechless. He looked at Elara, this remarkable, quiet child. "So, when you spoke to me that day?" "It was the first time I used my outside voice for something really, really important," Elara said, her voice clear and bright. "Mommy said it was time." Maya laughed, a sound like crystal bells that filled the room. "I did. I told her, the silence has to end, baby. Go tell your uncle. Use your big voice now." Leo felt tears prick his eyes again. He looked at his sister, fully present, fully alive, holding her daughter. He looked at Elara, who was no longer defined by her silence, but by the powerful, loving voice she had chosen to use. The room wasn't filled with the heavy silence of Sunview Manor. It was filled with the comfortable, easy quiet of a family, a quiet that was occasionally broken by laughter, by the clatter of blocks, by the simple, miraculous sound of conversation. And it was the most beautiful noise in the world.